Hello guys and welcome to another World of Warcraft video. So this time we're talking toys. There are loads in the game and I'm sure most are collected for novelty reasons. The thing is, some of them are actually useful. Now let's take a look at 15 of those that fall under that category. 3 so-called portable mailboxes in the form of toys exist. Now there is another one called the Sassy Imp, but that one is specifically for Draenor and it has a random on-use effect. Because of that, I will only include Katie's Stamp Whistle, Molly and the Ohuna Perch in the mail toy category. Katie and the Ohuna Perch are on a shared 3-hour cooldown, but Molly has a separate cooldown which is also only 1 hour long. Let's start off with Katie's Stamp Whistle, which in my opinion is the most difficult one to acquire. Now the journey starts in the Legion version of Dalaran, where you will have to scour the mailboxes in order to find the so-called lost mail. This small envelope can spawn at any of the mailboxes in Dalaran, but it is rather rare. Also, some other people may be chasing it as well. Now, if you find yourself unlucky, you can always buy one from the auction house instead. Now once you have one, a quest chain will start, first taking you to Madame Goya in the underbelly of Dalaran. After that, you will receive an in-game mail that will take you to the mailroom of Dalaran. The entrance of this mailroom can be found near the pet cemetery. Once you're there, you'll have to do a couple of quests that will take you to several places in the world, and once all of that's done, you will be tasked with helping out in the mailroom through a minigame where you have to send mail to the appropriate continents. Now this will require a bit of topographical knowledge of Kalimdor, Eastern Kingdoms, Outland, Northern End, Pandaria and the Broken Isles. You will need to assign 15 letters to the correct continent in 60 seconds. Complete that quest and you'll receive another mail containing the Katie Stamp Whistle toy. Now moving on to Molly, which in comparison is fairly simple to acquire. Now you do have to be an engineer though, both if you want to craft it yourself and of course if you want to use it as well. Level your Northrend engineering up to 50, learn the recipe from any engineering training in Northrend, and after that you can decide to craft it using 8 obsidian bars and 8 eternal air. Now you can farm these yourself, or you can just decide to buy the entire thing from the auction house, as it's honestly fairly cheap. And regardless of what decision you make, you'll now have your own Molly. Now then we have the final mail toy, which is also fairly easy to get. You will have to reach Renown 14 with the Maruk Centaur and the Dragon Elves. You can do this by doing various in-game events such as the Ilike Encampment, which is a random daily hub that will move around between 3 spots in the zone, or you can just do some of the world quests associated with the Maruk. Once you'll reach Renown 14, head to the Quartermaster in the main building of Marukai. He will have a quest for you that will grant you the Ohuna Perch. A perfect toy for a high level character that has to do trivial and outdated content. There are some situations where you're only allowed to almost kill a creature, but that may be difficult as you one-shot pretty much everything. The ideal solution for that is the Soft Foam Sword. It can be bought from any toy vendor in the world for about 40 to 50 gold. Using it on a so-called trivial creature will bring it down to 10% health, and it will not trigger any auto attacks after that. It cannot be used in raids or dungeons, so it does have some limitations. And many people have complained about the bobber size in World of Warcraft. To fix that, Blizzard added Oversized bobbers, which is an on-use item that'll increase the size of your fishing bobber. Now you can buy them from any fishing vendor in the world, so do that. Fishing up 100 fish with those oversized bobbers will grant you an achievement called, and bear with me here, Discombobberlated. Getting that achievement will grant you the Reusable Oversized bobber, which means you will no longer have to buy the oversized bobbers from vendors. Now the easiest way to get this item is by going to Dalaran in the Broken Isles and then head to the underbelly to the bit where you can fish. Now the achievement tracks amounts of fish caught, not the amount of casts. So it means that you don't actually have to cast your rod 100 times, you simply have to fish up 100 fish. Now target the shimmering worlds in the underbelly and start fishing. Of course you must have the bobber activated, by the way, don't forget that, very important strategy. Now each pool will give 5 to 10 sightless eyes, which for some reason also count as fish. Just keep doing that for a bit and you'll be done in 10 minutes. Now this one will probably take the longest to acquire it, but it may be worth it if you're into pet battling, as using it will provide a 10% XP boost to your battle pets. To acquire this toy, you will simply have to beat 40 Grandmasters spread across the Eastern Kingdoms, Kalimdor, Outland, Northern End and Pandaria. Now I'm not going to bore everyone by telling you where all of these trainers are and how to beat them. That will be another guide on its own. You'll find the Wowhide link to the achievement down below. One of the first comments has a complete list with coordinates. The tricky thing about this toy is though, you cannot complete it on one faction. You will end up at 39 out of 40. which means you have to beat another trainer of the opposing faction. Now that one trainer can be found in either Orgrimmar or Stormwind. If you don't have another character of the opposite faction, simply create a class trial character and beat the Grandmaster Tamer in either of the two cities. Next to the Grand Expedition Yak, the next toy is the only transmog vendor on the go. Now the Yak is rather expensive, costing 120k gold, whereas the Ethereal Transmogrifier is a lot cheaper, but unfortunately it is currently not available as it is part of the trading post rotation. The last time it was in the trading post was back in August, and at the time it only costed 500 traders tender, which in my opinion is well worth it. Now for now, it is not known when this toy will return to the trading post, but simply keep your eyes peeled and get it once it's here. If for some reason you don't have enough traders tender and you still can buy it when it returns, you can always use the freeze functionality to make sure you can buy it at a later point in time. Now this may not seem that useful as you already have a Hearthstone, but with these toys you can actually consider deleting your regular Hearthstone, and which will free up another bag slot. Now this is incredibly useful considering how stuffed our bags have gotten. I mean, you can see mine on the screen, there's not much room left. I should really clean that up at some point. Getting these Hearthstone variations can be done in various ways. Each variation is obtained through a different method. Let's just take 3 as examples. Now first, we have the Hearthstone of the Flame, which is a drop from Lauradar, Keeper of the Flame in the Amir Drasil raid. It has an 88% drop chance, so it is very likely to drop. Unfortunately though, it is part of the group loot table, meaning everyone can roll on it. That could make it a bit more difficult, but to make it a bit more easy, it can be farmed on every single difficulty, including LFR. Now this specific one, I really like it, it looks incredibly cool, but it has one downside: it cannot be used in combat. The second example will be the Great Father's Winter Hearthstone. It can be acquired by opening up the Christmas gifts in Ironforge during the Winter Veil event. Sounds incredibly simple to get, which is the case, but unfortunately it's time gated as it is not always Christmas. Now the third example will be the Dominated Hearthstone, which you can get by doing the Jailer's Gauntlet in Torghast in the Maw. Completing the level 2 version, which is incredibly easy now as it doesn't scale, will award you the achievement that'll give you this toy. Now there's plenty of other examples, but overall they're all fairly easy to acquire. However, we're not done with Hearthstones just yet, as the next 2 are even more useful as they're on a separate timer. I'm talking about the Garrison Hearthstone, which will take you to your garrison in Draenor, and the Dalaran Hearthstone, which will take you to Dalaran in the Broken Isles. Getting both of them is incredibly simple. You get them quite early in the respective expansion quest chain, so simply follow the quest intro for Draenor and the intro for the Broken Isles, and do 1 or 2 quests after that, and you'll have them. That is it. Now the next toy can be useful, but it's also very situational. It is the magical snow sled, which can be acquired by reaching renown 26 with the Iskara Tusker. Now obviously that'll take a bit of time, though it will not take incredibly long either. Simply do some world quests, the weekly soup event, and select the Iskara Tusker rep tokens whenever you can get them. After you reach renown 26, you will get a quest from the Quartermaster in Iskara. The goal of that quest is to fly northwest to a small island filled with Tusker children. Now once you're there, you can hand in your quest and pick between this sled and another. Now I would always go for the magical snow sled, as the other one requires another player. Now what makes this so useful is that it is actually pretty fast and that you can use it on any level character. Another situation that will make this useful is that you can use it to flee combat, as long as you have some kind of ability that will result in an absorb or immunity. Now even though it can be used in combat, you cannot use it while pacified, of course, so using Aspect of the Turtle, for example, will not do the trick. Divine Shield, on the other hand, will work. Now besides its cool abilities, it has a couple of downsides. Its speed can decrease rapidly if you're not going downhill or hit a slope eventually. There's a speed up ability you can use to sort of keep moving, but eventually you'll come to a halt if you're not going downhill. The other downside is that it has a 5-minute cooldown. Now there's quite a few of these, and they are all part of a specific expansion. In essence, these can be useful if you've run out of Hearthstones or other teleports to travel and are then willing to use something less reliable. These Wormhole Generators will take you to wherever you need to go, just not the specific area you need to go to. That means you could appear incredibly close to wherever it is you do need it to go, or a couple of zones next to that. They're all crafted through engineering, but I would simply opt for buying them. You will need to be an engineer to be able to actually use these teleports, but then at least you will not have to level a specific expansion engineering skill. And if you do decide to craft it yourself, I wouldn't call it that hard, it just takes a bit of time. Now the next one is another engineering toy. Now, it appears the profession may be a bit useful after all. We have the Ludarang, which is part of the Cataclysm engineering portion. You will have to reach 70 Cataclysm engineering to be able to craft it yourself if that's what you want to. On the other hand, you can also simply buy it off the auction house. It is not expensive at all. You will still need to be an engineer to actually use it though. Now what makes this toy useful is that it allows you to AoE loot everything you killed instantly by simply clicking a button. Now this item has become a lot less useful since the new AoE looting system was introduced quite some time ago, but the advantage it still has is that you can still keybind it and simply press that key, which takes up less time than having to manually click a corpse. Now our first and only cooking toy, and one that is desperately needed by everyone who cooks. Having and using the chef's hat will increase your cooking crafting speed by approximately 300%, which means that your craft time is reduced from 2 seconds to half a second. Sounds useful, right? The journey to get it though may take a bit longer. You will need to acquire 100 Epicureans awards in order to be able to buy it. You can get this currency by doing the cooking dailies in Dalaran and the classic faction capitals. And next to that, during Wrath of the Lich King time walking, it is actually easier to acquire these batches as you can simply buy them from the time walking vendor in Dalaran for some time ward batches. You will need some gold for the next toys, but they are absolutely essential if you don't want to dilly-dally around with leveling a new character. There are 10 scouting maps in total and they cost about 10k each. Now what these scout maps do is they will unlock 99% of all flight masters without actually having to go there first. So if you enjoy ulting but do not enjoy walking, these are absolute must-have toys. You can easily buy them from the heirloom vendor in either Ironforge or Orgrimmar. It's as simple as that, just not very cheap. Quite a niche toy, and it will not provide you with that much mana, but the Dragon Tea set can be convenient if you don't walk around with mana drinks in your bag. Now I main a red paladin and carry around no water, but sometimes I have to switch to holy for a specific situation. Changing your spec causes you to run out of mana, and I've used this toy in order to get a little bit of that mana back. Now that's just one example of when this toy can be useful. It is incredibly easy to acquire, which is also why it's worth the invested time. After you reach Renown 3 with the Valdraken Accord, a very simple quest will unlock in the Roasted Ram Inn. It will be completed immediately and will allow you to pick between some transmogs and this toy. Simply pick the toy and there it is. These two water walking toys are especially useful when combined with fishing. They will allow you to stand on the water and fish at the same time. Now, you don't always have a shaman with water walking or a death knight with Path of Frost at hand, so this is a decent alternative. Now first off we have the Tuskar Dinghy, which can be obtained by completing the River Rapids Wrangler achievement in the Azure Span. This can be done in the area you see on the map right now. Now you may have to do a small quest chain at first, but after that's done this area will be unlocked for repeating River Rapids fish catching. The idea is simple: catch 40 fish with your nets during a rather short boat ride. Now apparently this was a lot harder at first, but it has been simplified by having more fish spawn, and all these fish now have light beams over their head. Simply use the small net on fish that are far away, and the big net when there are multiple fish under you. And that is it, you will now have the Tuskar Dinghy. Fun fact, mashing the jump button will make it go faster while you're in it. Also, exiting the water will not remove the toy's buff, you can simply then re-enter the water and the dinghy will reappear. Now there is an alternative to the dinghy, but this one actually takes a bit more time to acquire. It is the Angler's Fishing Raft, which can be acquired through a rep grind in Pandaria. Now for those of you who remember Pandaria, you know it was essentially doing a lot of dailies. Every single time. That applies here as well. You can go to the Angler's Wharf in Krasarang Wilds and do the dailies there every single day until you revert. If you're not a fan of that, you can also simply wait until the Pandaria Time Walking event is active and buy the rep tokens from the Time Walking vendor instead. Now sometimes you just want to go absolutely ham on something, but there are no target dummies near you. Luckily there are some toys that could fit that role. There's quite a few of them, but for the sake of the length of this video, we'll only focus on two. The Turnip Punching Bag from Pandaria and the Rubbery Fish Hat from Dragonflight. Now to get the Turnip Punching Bag, you will simply need to do the first bit of questing in the Valley of the Four Winds. It starts where I'm at right now at Chen Stormstout, who isn't here for me because of phasing. Complete that very small quest chain and you'll get the turnip. It only takes 6 quests or so. Pretty easy. Now the alternative to that is the rubbery fish head, which you can acquire by reaching Renown 17 with the Ascara Tuskar, using the same strategies as explained at the Magical Snow Sled. Now obviously this will take a bit longer to acquire than the turnip punching bag, but it is pretty simple. Once you've reached Renown 17, simply head over to Iskara and talk to Nunvag. He will provide a quest that is instantly completed, which allows you to choose 2 toys. Simply pick the rubbery fish head, and there you have it. Now this final toy has become a personal favorite of mine. It is the jar of Sunwarmed sand. It turns night into day for 2 hours. Now the downside is that it has a 24-hour cooldown, which in my opinion is ridiculous. But alas, it is what it is. Acquiring it is rather simple, but it will require you to do some time walking content for a bit. You will need 1000 time warp badges, and once you have those, you're able to buy them from Otela in the Caverns of Time. You can see me doing that here right now. Now if you're not willing to invest the amount of time needed to acquire 1000 time warp badges, you can also simply stock up on the Sunwarmed sand that is sold by the same vendor. It costs 10 time warp badges, though these are consumed on use and thus less effective in the long term. Now this toy can be incredibly useful for those among us who only have time to play in the evening and are thus a bit sick of playing in the dark. World of Warcraft has a day-night cycle that mimics the real flow of time, but that isn't always a good thing for everyone. Now this toy can fix that. Just keep in mind the buff is removed upon death, and as said before, it has a very long cooldown, so be careful. Now if you would like to have it the other way around, so turning the light into the dark, you could also try to acquire the Shadescale toy. This item drops from the rare Shasera in Nashatar. It has a drop chance of about 10% and has so far eluded me. So the alternative I use for this toy is the Inky Black Potion, which really brings out the dark, and it also improves lighting by a lot. Now these were 15 toy categories that I consider to be useful and use quite a bit in my day-to-day activities. Of course there are quite a few more that have some type of usefulness, but I'll leave those for another video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you the next time. Bye bye.